Hey everybody, welcome back to Pioneers of Disruption. You know me, Vaughn Kelly, Director of Video Marketing here. And today's guest, I have Mike Hayden. He is Assistant Vice President and runs the fraud department here with our company. Brought him on board so he can give us a little bit more insight about the ins and outs of fraud and the things that they see, and maybe some things that you guys can be aware of, to prevent fraud from happening with your clients as well. So a little bit about Mike. He's been in the industry coming up on 9 years. He's an attorney, super smart guy from what I know so far.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Let's not go crazy, right?
No, but I enjoy my experience. It's still relatively new between us, but Mike, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so been in the industry, like you said, about nine years. I was claims counsel before I came over to Pioneer at First American, and then came over here, wanted to learn more about the industry. So jumped into the title side of things. Started from the ground, examining, learning more about that side, and kind of transitioned to the fraud team about a year and a half ago, and then took over running it about a month ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the reason you got into fraud? Like, was it something that kind of matched your personality, or you felt that you excel at, or was it just you testing the waters? Like, what was going on?
It was more testing the waters than anything else. Like I said, when I came over here, I wanted to see more of the industry, and I didn't really even know where to start. Right, like this is there are a lot of different facets of the title industry. So started off examining, was looking to do more, and Keith actually recommended, hey, why don't you try this out? And I did, and I instantly took to it because it's investigating, right? And with my claims background, that's a lot of what I was doing before, and it's fun to really sink your teeth into something, especially when you identify that it's fraud. It's fun. It's fun to chase those trails. So so we basically developed this. Tyler started the fraud team, and it's organically developed into what it is today. Really robust system, but we basically just had to figure out how to do this thing. Yeah. I think we've gotten pretty good at it.
I can only imagine. I mean, the only fraud, things that I see is like on American Greed and things like that. So that's what I picture how you are, with them. They're just like, oh yeah, we, backtracked about 12 years and dug deep and pulled up all this stuff. Like, is it that in depth, or is it more so just situational, surface level? Then you kind of...
Some of them, the easy ones, pretty easy to pick those apart because I'll give you an example. So one of the main areas of fraud that we've been combating for, I'd say probably a year and a half, thereabouts, is vacant land fraud. Mm-hmm. So it took us some time, but we were able to basically track all of these frauds back to they all originate out of Nigeria. They use different countries through VPNs to make it look like it's, they're in, South Africa, they're in Russia, wherever. But ultimately it's tracks back to Nigeria. And then they have, people here in the States to fraudulently execute documents, that sort of thing. But because they do so many of them, they're not really trying that hard. So those ones are surface level ones. Those are the ones that we're able to identify pretty quickly. And then, we peg that as fraud, do what we need to do on those, and then we move on. But some of these ones that are a little more intricate, we're pulling apart family trees, we're chasing things back years. So it can get pretty complicated.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's when I want to come in there and just like kind of be a fly on the wall and watch you guys, do your thing. I think that'd be so cool.
Those ones are fun, especially, we work with law enforcement, especially when we get an arrest.
And I think I actually had a question about that. Yeah. Don't exactly remember where it was, but we could just kick it off with some of these questions anyway. Sure. So, how do you identify potential fraud risk in title and escrow transactions, and what measures do you take to mitigate these risks?
So much of this is just education, right? So everybody on the front lines, those escrow officers, the agents before them, those are the people who really, they're the front line, and they're the ones who identify the the fraudsters, usually before it even hits our desk.
Nice.
But again, it's about education, and it's tough now because so much of this is done digitally, electronically, that you're not having those conversations. So sometimes these things will slip through, and again, it could be fraudster sitting wherever in the world, perpetrating these frauds just by sending an email, asking for a listing, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what we basically do is we get with our folks, our escrow folks, and with the agents, and educate them as far as, what do these emails look like? Have you worked with this person before? What type of property? That's a really important one. So like I mentioned earlier, the vacant land fraud. Well, if it's vacant land and it's unencumbered, so there's no deeds of trust on there or anything like that, and that owner lives out of state, then those are three major criteria to look at as potentially fraud.
Like some red flags, yeah.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if this is ever changing, but how often are there new tactics, with, I guess these fraudsters, there we go, with these fraudsters coming up with, just different ways of like kind of, trying to rip people off or whatever. Are there like a few that they typically stick to, or is it always like just changing?
Well, they'll keep it the same as long as it works.
Gotcha.
And I think a big part of it, like I was mentioning, the vacant land fraud, we've gotten so good at combating that at this point that we've seen a major shift away from that type of fraud. It still exists, don't get me wrong. Every single one of these scams, someone out there is still going to be trying to run it.
Mm.
But every time we get better, they learn as well. And it's this constant evolution. So we're trying to anticipate what they're going to do next. And they're trying to stay a step ahead of us as well. So we're seeing a shift right now, especially like wire fraud, like buyer closing funds, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're seeing a big shift towards that, and some of our industry partners have identified that as well. So, we're pivoting appropriately. We're necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds very like heavy on the anxiety. You know what I mean? Like
sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I have to go pull a file and take another look at it.
You're like, I got it. Like it just hits you sometimes. Like
without a doubt, yes.
Yeah, I can. A lot of things have come to me in the middle of the night. You just wake up, like you said, taking second looks at things. Like especially with editing video, like I might have like what could be equivalent to like writer's block because you're just staring at the screen for so long. So I might pass out, take a quick nap, and then I'm just like, oh, like you just get it. So I imagine it's like the same in any industry, really. So
yeah. I mean, we do a lot of our best thinking when we're sleeping. So
yeah, yeah. You exit to the next realm or something like that. Okay, so in the event of a suspected or confirmed fraud incident, what is your protocol for investigation and resolution?
Fact specific, obviously. But if we've identified something that's definitely fraud, and we have an open file, and we're progressing with that file, one thing we do, especially on the vacant land side of things, is we work pretty closely with the Attorney General's office, investigator over there named Don Carroll. He's fantastic, and if it's something that's in progress, we've worked with them in the past pretty extensively on setting up these sting operations. So if it fits the criteria, we call up Don and get him read in, and we work towards getting these fraudsters, because ultimately we want to get these people off the streets.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, that sounds so exciting. I don't know. Like it sounds like some movie stuff. No, I think that's cool. You said setting up sting operations, like the whole nine. Like, man, I really need to be like, I want to be the video guy for that.
All right.
Like cops, you know what I'm saying? Like that'd be dope. Okay, what technologies or tools do you utilize for fraud detection and prevention in title and escrow processes? And again, if that's given too much, don't feel like you have to speak on things if it's like gonna jeopardize anything.
No, that's okay. So generally speaking, like I said, Tyler built this team, and he's partnered with some really valuable third parties to bring us those tools that we need So we use an RMS system, a risk management system, where we can research those people, phone numbers, emails, that sort of thing, get some of that background that we need on the individual versus who this person's posing as, right? So the fraudster versus the actual person. And then we utilize tools like, we have some ID programs that we use. And these been integrated throughout our escrow process. So
Sure.
it's pretty seamless. And we just want to make sure that we're dealing with the people that we think we're dealing with. And, but yeah, I mean, it's not used on every transaction, but it certainly can be.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any like bounty hunters on call?
No, we don't. But it's a good idea. It's
Yeah.
growth, right? Like,
Yeah. I'm just, hey, man, you know, get someone
What's
like
dog up to these
That's
days?
what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
It's like, hey man, so we got this facial recognition program. Like, here's where they stay. Okay, so I had a couple people from the team ask, want me to ask you some questions, and one of them is, what do customers do and team members do for strategies on identifying different types of fraud internally and externally?
So we treat those differently, obviously, right? So if we have customers or even just property owners out there who have questions, whether or not somebody's trying to steal their property, whatever that may be. So for those people, for the consumers out there, the property owners, what's really great is the state of Arizona passed a law last year requiring every county to have an opt-in notification service for recordings.
Oh.
So basically, if you own your property, say you own it with your wife, so you'd want to put your name and your wife's name, and then your associated email that you want to be notified. So if somebody went ahead and recorded a fake deed against your property, you'd be alerted to that right away.
Actually, now that you mention it, I see that often with my wife, with like her name popping up, but like it's just saying, hey, they have a similar name,
Yes.
which I think is super cool.
It's great. It can be annoying if you have a really common name,
Sure.
but it's a great service, and I'm really happy they did that.
Yeah.
But that's just one way. There are several other ways that people can protect themselves. But when we get an alert from like an internal source, then we approach that a little differently. We look at the file holistically. We look at the information that we have in the file, the contact information. We look at if we've had transactions with this person in the past. And we basically, we identify, what potential fraud that they're trying to affect here, and we go from there. Is that essentially answering the question?
No, it's perfect. Yeah. Great. And
How much money have we seen people lose? Maybe, I guess, for you, like within your tenure here or in the, in this career.
There's a lot of money out there to every year the industry gets hit pretty significantly, and it's only increasing as far as fraud is concerned. Me personally, I was on the title insurance claim side of things prior to this, so I saw when things went wrong and those fraudulent transactions. They're total failures of title where somebody thinks they're buying this property and ends up they just purchased it from a fraudster. So that's a total failure of title. So whatever that money is that they paid there, they lost that, and hopefully title insurance would cover it. But it varies, obviously, but we've seen a lot of money go out the door. But I'll tell you right now, Juan, we prevented exponentially more than we've paid out. And hopefully we can continue staying a step ahead of the fraudsters, and we would like to eliminate it completely, but that's never going to happen.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, this is great news. Keeping people safe, it just creates more trust for us. For sure. So another question is that the people have is what type of repercussions can someone face for doing fraud? Whether that be fines and jail time, one or the other. Like, what does that look like?
Oh, it's both. I mean, the fraud statute on the books here in Arizona is pretty significant. So we, if somebody's caught and arrested, which, like we had mentioned before, we have an arrest through the Attorney General's office, and we are hoping to have a few more coming in the near future based on that same ring. And yeah, I mean, it's jail time. It's going to be restitution. It's going to be, there are fines involved, like the whole deal. So, I mean, it's significant. And I mean, it doesn't pay. And,
Yeah.
you know, the better we get at this, the closer we are to shutting those fraudsters down. And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to make it so unpalatable for those fraudsters so they just leave Arizona alone.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a max amount of jail time that gets sentenced? Is it like a flat, like, no matter the scale of fraud?
Like mandatory sentencing.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have to look at the statute on that. I'm not sure what it states, but it's significant.
Yeah.
It's significant.
Enough to, you might want to triple think about that. So.
Yeah, you know, and unfortunately, you know, a lot of these fraudsters, they'll do their time and they'll come out and they'll run the scheme again.
Yeah.
And it's just human nature.
Their life's over at that point in time. It was like, what else are you gonna do? So, no, but so last question I have for you is, do you provide? I know you mentioned that you provide like educational and things like that internally, but I guess it's like, do you provide educational resources or guidance to clients on how to protect themselves from title and escrow fraud?
Absolutely. I every month or two, I'll go out to one of our industry partners, whether it's brokerage, whether it's you know, a lender, and I try to give them some education, you know, provide a little bit of guidance so they, you know, don't fall victim, you know, harden their defenses a little bit. Yeah, we're always willing to do that, and if anyone, you know, has an interest in that, we'd be more than willing to. So just contact you, and you know, we'll make it happen. Yeah.
All right, for sure. Well, appreciate your time and telling us a little bit more about what you do and the importance of it, because it's definitely important. You know, you're keeping us all employed, to say the least. You know, but thank you so much, Mike, you know, for joining Pioneers of Disruption. And this is why he's a disruptor. You know, he's just out here catching criminals. So watch your back. No.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.